The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, your host on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. One of the reasons I've always been fascinated with baseball is because it represents the best and worst of the American national character. No issue better demonstrates that fact than the issue of race. Contrary to popular belief, Jackie Robinson's breaking of the color barrier in 1947 with the Brooklyn Dodgers was not the end of racism in baseball, but only the beginning. As the number of African American players increased and starred in the majors, their treatment by owners and fans in particular was unconscionable, and not just in the South where Jim Crow reigned well into the 1960s. Even in northern cities like Philadelphia and Boston, black major leaguers were not shown basic human decency. Fortunately, the black players who followed in Robinson's wake were, like him, men of strong character, as well as exceptional ability. One of those pioneers was our Philadelphia's very own Jackie Robinson, Dick Allen, and he is being considered once again by the Veterans Committee for the National Baseball Hall of Fame in December. And here to talk about Dick's career and his friendship with him is William Dakova White, a five-time All-Star with the St. Louis Cardinals and a teammate of Dick's on the Philadelphia Phillies, who also became the first black play-by-play broadcaster for a major league team and the first black president of a major sports league when he became the National League's president. Welcome to the podcast, Bill. It's an honor to have you on my program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, let's begin with your relationship with Dick Allen. When did you get to know him? Did you know him before you came to Philadelphia? I guess that would have been in '66.
No, I didn't know him before I came here. I had played against him, obviously. And when we caught them in '64, and Dick was one heck of a player. He probably the most. He hustled all the time. They talk about Pete Rose hustling, first base and whatever. And heck, if Dick had a pop-up, he'd be at second, maybe halfway to third base. We Cardinals respected him. We feared him with his bat. We didn't worry much about his glove. I don't think he did either, but he could hit it, and he hustled all the time. Of course, he might have been playing out of position at third base, but they finally put him in the outfield where they probably should have played him in the minor leagues. But reading about him, reading about what he went through in Arkansas, and talking to him about what he went through in Arkansas, at that time, it was tough. It was tough for him, and he got through that. It made him tougher. It made him probably a little bit more thinking inward than most players. But he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he's done a great job for himself and for baseball and his family.
Now, you came to Philadelphia at a time when a lot of this turmoil was bubbling up for Dick. In 1964, of course, he was the Rookie of the Year, but then things went south for him in 1965 after there was a fight that broke out between him and a popular white veteran by the name of Frank Thomas. And fortunately, you came to Philadelphia shortly after that because, he was a young black man. I think he was only 20, 21 years old, if that, at that period of time. Now, you were a veteran, and you had also experienced discrimination in your career. And fortunate enough for you, in the early 1950s, when you were experiencing this, and the 50s, your roommate, Monty Irvin, advised you not to rock the boat and assured you that someday all things will change. But it wasn't that way for Dick. So what I'd like you to talk about is some of the things that you saw him facing in Philadelphia, how you encouraged him to deal with those things, because he did admire and respect you tremendously, and how that unfolded.
Well, we roomed together, and we did room together for a while, and we talked a little baseball. I learned a lot of baseball from Dick Allen. As I mentioned before, he didn't give you one half on the field. He gave you 100%, offensively and defensively. Let's face it, defensively, he was put at third base, and he probably would have been better in the outfield the whole time. But we discussed pitchers. He was very, very, very aware of what pitchers threw, and probably could tell me some of the things that I didn't know about pitching, and that made him a great hitter. He had, people don't realize, he had some problems with his eyes. He wore glasses, and he had done that his whole career, and that doesn't help either fielding or batting. But he overcame that by just sheer physical ability. And the other thing I can say about Dick Allen, I know, as I mentioned, I'd hit a pop-up and I'd run like heck, and I'd be maybe halfway to second base. He'd hit a pop-up and he'd be halfway over to third. He had great speed. He had really pretty good hands. He probably could have worked on his throwing a little bit more, but when I got here, I think I probably handled the first base a little bit better than what's a big guy, Dick, whatever his name was, a big right-hander I replaced at first base, and so it saved him a lot of errors.
Dick Stewart.
Dick Stewart, yeah. You know, Dick didn't worry about catching the ball. He just worried about swinging the bat. A good guy, by the way. Dick was a good guy. He did the first base. He didn't talk to too many players, but you could talk to Dick. He always said, "Hi, how you doing? How you hitting?" And but obviously, he was not a Gold Glover first base, so we helped Dick with that. We were able to catch a lot of bouncers and get off the bag and get back on it before the runner got there. But I don't think I've ever played with a player who hustled as much as Dick Allen, and who paid as much attention to hitting and to the game. He knew the game, and people don't give him credit for that. But he was a good, excellent teammate. And we roomed together for a while, and I just enjoyed playing here with him. And if anybody belongs in the Hall of Fame, if you look at his statistics with a few clubs, you got to think that Dick Allen should have been in last time. I think he missed by one vote, and I just hope that he's able to get in this year, because sometimes you get a reputation you really don't deserve. You have to play with a fella, play with one to know what a kind of a player is. Hustler, give you 100%er, team player, willing to give himself up every once in a while to move a runner. He was a joy to play with, one of the better guys that I've played with, and good roomie.
Now, I'd like you to talk just a little bit about his offense, because you were teammates with some tremendous power hitters. You began your career in San Francisco, or actually the New York Giants, and then moved to San Francisco. And Willie Mays became a good friend of yours. Orlando Cepeda was a friend of yours. Willie McCovey was with the Giants at that period of time and coming up. So you saw these guys. How did Dick compare with these guys?
Well, the ball jumped off Dick Allen's bat better than any of the people you mentioned, including Mays. These guys had power, obviously. But I don't think that anybody in baseball, and I played with over the years, and as you mentioned, I played with those fellas, and I also played against them when they traded me, the Giants traded me to the Cardinals. And I have, I played 10, 12 years in the big leagues, and saw a few guys, a lot of guys that hit a lot of home runs, even Hank Aaron, who hit more than anybody else. And when I broadcast for the Yankees, I saw a couple of guys who could hit the ball out. One of them from right here in Philadelphia, Reggie Jackson. But nobody hit the ball harder, in my opinion, that I've ever seen in baseball. And I started, in 1952, 53, and came up in 56. and played with and against the guys I mentioned. Nobody had the bat speed of Dick Allen. And the other thing is people don't realize he would swing a bat that weighed 42, 44 ounces. Mm-hmm. And back then I swung one at 34. Once in a while I'd go to 36. And when I came here, I remember we were playing in Atlanta one day, and I picked up one of Dick Allen's bats, and I hit a home run, but it was at left field. I couldn't get the doggone thing around. I took it up the next time, and hit a lot of foul balls down the left field line, and I said, well, I can't swing this bat. I was swinging a 34-ounce bat, and so then I put it down, never used it again. But I don't know of anybody who had the power. I never played against anybody. I never saw anybody. And I played against a lot of guys who could swing the bat and get bat speed and hit the ball harder than Dick Allen.
Mm-hmm. Now, I once asked Dick, who was the toughest pitcher you ever faced? And he paused and he said, well, can I tell you who the toughest hitter I ever faced was? I'm saying to myself, why does he want to tell me about the toughest hitter? And without missing a beat, he said, my mother, she could hit you upside the head like no one's business, right?
Well, you know, his mother, Ira, I'm not sure exactly.
Era Allen.
For Era Allen.
Yeah.
I know that I always pronounce, I can spell it, can't pronounce it, but she did a great job raising Dick, and she saved his money. And when he retired, he was well positioned financially. So you've got, and he just adored her. And
yep.
He, I think he just adored her and admired her, and she did one heck of a job of raising him and saving his money.
Now, I do want to get back to that issue about the toughest pitcher, because he never mentioned a name, but I got to believe that back in the day, Bob Gibson was the toughest pitcher that he ever faced, because Gibby would just as soon knock you down than strike you out. And, of course, not many people realize Bob Gibson kind of had Coke bottle glasses, and he didn't wear them when he was on the mound. Now, you were a teammate of Bob Gibson's in St. Louis. Can you remember how Dick hit off of Bob Gibson?
I think Dick Allen hit everybody. Once you turn the ball loose, it's me and the ball. You know, you might say this guy's a heck of a pitcher, but he turns it loose. Pitcher makes mistakes. Pitcher pitches, he wants to go somewhere else, but he pitches to your power, and you pop him. And I can't remember. We didn't want to pitch to Allen, and even with nobody on base, you didn't want to pitch to him. You had to be very careful, and I can't remember now. I've been away for so long how Dick hit against Bob Gibson, but I would say that if a ball got in his strike zone, he would hit anyone. Doesn't make any difference, and pitchers make mistakes. And if you made a mistake with Allen, you're in trouble.
Tim McCarver once told me that Gussie Busch was very, very careful when he integrated the Cardinals, that when he signed players, the African-American young men that he signed were men of high character, because he did not want any kinds of racial turmoil on the Cardinals, and yet he knew that if this, which was still an experiment back in the 1950s after Robinson broke the color barrier, that if that experiment didn't work, he'd get criticized for it. And the people who he had coming to the Cardinals, Bob Gibson, yourself, Curt Flood, people like that, were men of high character.
I have to interrupt you there. The guy who did this was Bing Devine, the general manager.
Okay.
Of course, Bush owned the team, but he was more worried about the beer company than I think he was worried about the Cardinals. He'd come out once in a while, but we had a general manager who I don't think had a prejudicial bone in his body, and that was Bing Devine. He brought me there and traded for me from the Giants, and I've had great respect for him and for his wife and family. And the credit there goes to Bing Devine. I think Bush spent most of his time worrying about how many beers he's going to sell. Mm-hmm. So Bing Devine probably doesn't get the credit he's due, but he's the one who brought me there, and a lot of other guys, and Gibson and whatever. And but that's unfortunately he doesn't get much credit for that.
The thing about that Cardinals team, though, that team was truly integrated. I mean, the guys, players, white and black teammates, they used to go out to dinner together. They used to go to the movies together. They hung together. And
what team are you talking about?
The Cardinals.
I played for? The
Cardinals, right.
Well, we didn't do much of that together, to be honest with you. What we did do, I think in 1962, we integrated spring training.
Yeah.
With the help of Bing Devine. And what we did do that gets even less credit is when Atlanta wanted a Balls Club. And the Cardinals and another team, we were scheduled to play an exhibition game in Atlanta prior to them applying and getting a team. And we said, look, we're not going to play black players not going to play in Atlanta unless every seat can be bought by whoever wants to buy it. Of course, you have reserved seats. And we, along with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Willie Stargell and those guys, I talked to Willie, and I said, look, if we will not play an exhibition game in Atlanta unless you sell tickets up there, first come, first serve, or how you sell it, and those seats are integrated all over the park. Because prior to that, I don't think that a black could buy a seat in certain parks, probably out in right field someplace or out in the whatever. So Bing Devine and the general manager for the other team, Pittsburgh Pirates, I think we were supposed to play. I told the Atlanta Braves or the Atlanta people that this game isn't going to be played unless people can buy a ticket anywhere they want to buy a ticket. Mm-hmm. And the Atlanta people said, fine. That's how much they wanted a major league team. And when we got up there, everybody, the seating was integrated. I forget what year that was, but we did that at that time with the Pirates and Willie, as I mentioned.
And wasn't that team also instrumental in getting integrated hotels, an integrated hotel purchased by the Cardinals in St. Petersburg, Florida?
Yep, we did that. Let me see, about 1962.
Right.
Florida, all of the spring training sites, the blacks had to stay. We had to stay in private homes, and the regulars stayed. The regular white players stayed in the motels, the best motel, usually are and hotel in the city. And we got that done in 1962. We got to know each other better. We came close in '63. The Dodgers beat us, and then we won it in '64. The last day, I think the Phillies had a good shot at that 11-game lead with about 11, 12 days left, and we caught them and beat them.
Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because, obviously Dick Allen did not have that advantage in Philadelphia. And yet, after the 1969 season, in a trade that would be a precursor to the advent of free agency, the Cardinals traded Curt Flood to Philadelphia for Dick Allen. It wasn't 1-1 straight up. There were other players involved in the deal, but those were the two principal players. And Flood wrote to Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner then, and said, I'm not going to report. I'm not going to Philadelphia. I don't care what kind of money is offered in this. I'm treated like a well-paid slave here. And he didn't want to go to Philadelphia. He didn't want to go to Philadelphia because, frankly, the way Dick Allen was treated. Now, the question I'm getting to here is, what was it like to play in Philadelphia for you in 1966, 67, and 68? Because you were here.
Well, I'm not sure the Flood didn't want to come here because of the racial thing here. It was because he didn't like the reserve clause, which kept him and all players. Once you signed the contract, you were the property of that player, that team for X amount of, well, your property, period.
Right.
You couldn't do anything unless that team released you. But that's what he didn't appreciate. Now, I came to Philadelphia and I had no problem at all. I had a radio show at KMOX or a TV show at KMOX. No, that's the radio show was in St. Louis. I'm sorry, before I came here.
You had WFIL. You were working there.
WFIL. I worked there. The general manager there helped me find a home out in the suburbs. I made speeches for them with kids and whatever. So I had no problem when I came here. And Dick never said to me that he had a problem here in Philadelphia. He may have had a problem with the fans.
Right.
But one of his best friends was, I think, a little Italian guy for Dick Allen. And obviously, if you look at his stats, you would say, hey, he's one of the better players ever played here in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then, correct me if I'm wrong, but you ended up back in St. Louis in 1969 for about 50 games before you retired. So you and Dick were teammates once again, but this time in the Cardinals.
No. Dick, I went to the Cardinals. Dick chased me out of here, quite honestly.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah, the only place we could both play, I somehow had an Achilles problem, and playing racquetball in St. Louis. I still had lived in St. Louis at that time, and I couldn't run, I couldn't hit, and I couldn't do anything else, actually, but they still tried to get me to play first base and
right.
put Dick on left field, and I couldn't play anymore, and so then they brought Dick in to play first base because he had a hard time throwing.
Right.
That's, I think, when he wrote this, whatever he wrote on the ground there, get me out of here, or whatever, he wanted to get out, and then I guess the first team we went to, I'm not sure because I didn't follow baseball with St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lot better player than I was. You look at the stats.
You're also a very modest individual, and I gathered that very quickly from your book, because everywhere you ever played, from high school on up, you always downplayed your stats. And let me tell you, in 1962. When you were with the Cardinals, you began a 5-year run as one of the National League's elite players. You posted an adjusted .324 batting average and .868 OPS. In 63, you had career highs with 200 hits, 106 runs, 27 home runs, 109 RBIs, and made the first of 5 All-Star appearances. When you came to Philadelphia in 66, you hit 22 home runs, 103 RBIs. Had you not torn that Achilles, we might be talking Hall of Fame with you as a player. So I really do appreciate, and I'm sure Dick appreciates that comment as well, about your respect and admiration for him. Bill, there's no question that Dick has the statistics to be in the Hall of Fame. His OPS, bar none, in the period 1964 to 1974 is the best in baseball. So why do you think the Hall of Fame has not let him in? The writers didn't let him in 77, for the 10, 12 years or whatever he was eligible. And then the Veterans Committee back in, 2014, considered him again, lost by 1 vote or missed it by 1 vote. Why is this guy not in the Hall?
Let me ask you something while you're talking. Let me, I hate to interrupt you, but you remember Dick Allen played for the Chicago White Sox?
Yes, he did.
All right, and he was MVP there.
1972.
Right. Now, who owns the White Sox then?
The Reisendorf family?
No.
Was it?
The what?
Well, I thought it was the Reisendorf family.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and he owned it, and he ran it. And he once said some derogatory things about Dick Allen, although Dick Allen was MVP for him. He personally, for whatever reason, in my opinion, has a vendetta for Dick Allen. And Reinsdorf presently is, I think, last time I looked, he was on the Hall of Fame board.
Wow.
And if I'm correct there, and I'm not sure because I haven't followed baseball for I don't know how long, 15 since I left the National League as president. I think Reinsdorf sort of got on the board then. Whether he deserves to be on the board or not, I guess he gives him a lot of money. But my statement is that if he's still on the board, and I think he still has some influence there, he's the reason Dick Allen is not in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There's still some politics,
Yeah. Stacking the voters. I mean, we know when Marvin Miller, all those years he was not admitted by the Veterans Committee. When he came close one year, then they put more owners than players, former players, on the committee. And, then his numbers went down dramatically to the point where Marvin Miller just wrote a letter to the Hall of Fame and said, look, I don't want to be considered anymore because, I'm not going to.
And I think that they should, although I think he's been voted in, I think you should honor what a guy wants. When Marvin, the last time he was sick, I called him and talked to him. And he said, I do not want to be considered for the Hall of Fame. I don't want to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think that it would be a good idea if people would say, Marvin doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to put him in this year, and I read somewhere where nobody in his family was going to attend.
Wow.
So if he doesn't want to go in, why put him in?
Wow.
And unfortunately, I was on the Hall of Fame board for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've seen the politics in action.
No comment.
What do you think's going to happen in December, Bill? Is he going to get in? Is Dick going to get into Dick Allen?
I don't know.
Will he get into the Hall of Fame?
Well, he missed by one vote, and I would think and hope he gets in.
Right.
But we'll just see what happens. I hope that the Hall of Fame hasn't become politicized.
Yeah.
Because, we've got some people in there who really don't have great reputations.
Yeah.
In the past, I don't know what I can't say anything about what happened since I've followed baseball, but you look at some of the reps of some of the people who are in there, especially racial reps.
What needs to be done then? What needs to be done to make this process equitable for players like Dick Allen who were so deserving? And
I don't know. I'm not going to blame the Hall of Fame or because it's a great thing for baseball. It's a great thing for that area up there. But possibly I won't say because as I mentioned, I was on the board there a while.
Yeah.
And I've run some of the committee meetings there. But I think we might be able to look a little bit closer at who's there, what's there, change some of the board, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a great institution, by the way. It's a great institution. It's great for baseball, and it's great for the area financially. I think one year you can get 50,000, 60,000 people around there. I believe, because I've been there sitting up front and looking out, and that whole farm is full of people, depending on who they bring in. But it's a great institution for baseball. It's a great place to visit and whatever.
Well, I got one last question for you I want to explore here. Dick, since his retirement from baseball, has been in various times an ambassador to baseball for the Phillies. And one of his involvements, in fact, one of the involvements I think he enjoys the most is working with the RBI program, which is reviving baseball in inner cities. And all we got to do is look at baseball today to see that the percentages of African American players are down. They're drastically down. When the baseball was, the sport that integrated professional sports and brought African Americans into it. Of course, we're seeing the Latin Americanization of baseball today. What's it going to take to get young black men back into the game in the numbers that, are proportional to, the representation that they once had in the game? What does baseball need to do?
Well, you've got to understand. I played in Puerto Rico and played in Santo Domingo, and baseball was very, very popular there. In fact, when I was league president, I visited the late Roberto Clemente's camp over there and what he was doing with baseball. And people forget also that Roberto wanted to make sure those kids that came out went to school and did a lot of things. It wasn't just baseball. And I went over and visited his park and whatever, and then I spoke to some people after, and I was very impressed by what he was doing. And that's one of the reasons that we have a lot of people from Puerto Rico playing. And I played also in Santo Domingo when I got out of the Army, and a lot of those kids play, and they conduct themselves and work like the son of a gun. I talked to a guy the other day about how he for instance, how many parks they had in New York where kids could play, and they don't have too many. And so there's got to be obviously places to play in order for people to compete and become major leaguers. And at least New York was a lot of kids played in New York. And the other thing is colleges. For a long time, the colleges, obviously in the South, were the better schools. And some of them were segregated, the institutions, universities, and some of them just didn't want diversity. So there are a lot of things that hurt and have hurt. I once, I think, Tennessee State, and tried to help them build a ballpark get the funds for the ballpark, and I think we made $50,000 for a little fair we had there for Tennessee State to build a park, and that didn't happen. They never built back when I was league president and whatever. They didn't build it. Well, Larry Doby went down there with me, and we raised this money. I know that for a while they didn't build a park. Now, if they have a baseball stadium there or not, I don't know. But Butch McCord worked like the son of a gun to have it built. And I did that with a lot of schools. But so the Spanish kids are working hard, not only in Puerto Rico and San Domingo, but also in South America. And they're just not the facilities now for a lot of people to have the opportunity to play, because you got to play it. You got to play it now from Little League on up, and they're not spaces to play in many of the cities.
Well, hopefully, what we're seeing right now is just a gap between when black interest among youth, transferred over from baseball, transferred over to basketball and football, and then when the RBI programs were started in various major league cities, because they are popular programs now, and hopefully they will yield their product over the next 10 years, because we do have greater numbers of African American kids involved in baseball, and I know that's what Dick is hoping for, and that's what I'm hoping for as well. Bill, thank you.
Well, you gotta want to play. There are no barriers there now. I won't say there are no barriers, but if you gotta want to play it, number one. You just can't blame it all on whatever. You gotta want to play it, and let's face it. We know LeBron James now, and we know the kids out in Kansas City, that quarterback, and and the rest of the people. And I think those two sports, for whatever reason, you look at who's playing down in Alabama. Do you see that team? University of Alabama football team. University who won this year? The team from. Well, anyway, you look at football, and you look at basketball, and then you look at baseball. So kids are going to the other sports, the better kids.
Yeah.
We got to get them back, hopefully.
We've been speaking with Bill White, former National League president who played for the St. Louis Cardinals and Philadelphia Phillies. And I do have to tell listeners about his book. He's also author of Uppity, My Untold Story About the Games People Play, which was released in 2011 by Grand Central Publishing, a subsidiary of Hachette Books, and it is available online at Amazon Books. Bill, thanks for joining me on the podcast and for all your contributions to baseball. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another podcast of Philadelphia baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, rounding third and heading home on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.